الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope everybody is well. Alhamdulillah, we are a third of the way through the ayat of Surah Al-Hujurat. We will do today the first part of ayah 6, inshallah. And we will complete the ayah tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, so we have the address to the believers. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Allah said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Again to the believers. Okay, and this is a reoccurring theme that we see in this surah. Okay, the surah comes with commandments and it comes with prohibitions, and this would be completing the iman when these are complied by, when these are submitted to. If the person understands what the surah is telling him to do, then this is completing his iman. Alhamdulillah. In ja'akum. Okay, in here is if. Okay, in ja'akum. Ja'a comes. Okay, if comes to you, ja'akum, if comes to you, what comes to you? Fasiq. Okay, if a fasiq comes to you, and we will go through the meaning of what a fasiq is here. Generally, you'll see it being translated as a wrongdoer or someone who is disobedient, someone who is involved in fisq. Okay, and we will go through the meaning of that. But if a fasiq comes to you with what? Binaba'in. Okay, with a news, with some information. Binaba'in fatabayyanu. Then don't act on impulse. You must fatabayyanu. You must make it clear. You must investigate and you must verify and make sure that it is accurate. And then the second part of the ayah goes into this in a bit more detail and talks about the consequence of what happens if you don't do this. But we will concentrate just on this first part today, inshallah. So all those who believe, if comes to you a fasiq with a news or with some information, fatabayyanu, then investigate, verify the fact. And this will, by doing what Allah has commanded the believers to do. Okay, you can see with each address to the believers, we are told to take heed and we are told to pay attention. And this, all of the things that Allah is mentioning in regards to the believers here is supposed to elevate the level of the character of the believers in their words, in their actions, in their thoughts, which we will see later on in the surah. So far we have learnt about etiquette in regards to Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who are superior. Okay, so we were told, don't go ahead and precede the Prophet ﷺ in things. Wait till he does something and then follow him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We were told not to raise our voice in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ or those who are superior. Now we see that Allah is giving us instructions as to how to deal with other believers, other Muslims, other people in general. And this also, comes under the heading of etiquette. Etiquette of the people of understanding. Okay, remember Allah said, وَأَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Okay, that most of them, they don't have understanding, they don't have reason. Following these etiquettes, okay, this is, from the people of understanding, okay, that they should follow these etiquettes. So if a fasiq, okay, comes with some news, then they should verify it and they should not accept it before it has been investigated and before it has been verified. Not to take any action until that information has been verified. So we are being told here not to be hasty, not to act on impulse, but to wait and verify and make sure that it is true and it is fact, and then you can act in whatever way that you need to. If we look at there is a narration about the revelation of this ayah. Okay, generally we can see here that we should not take information from somebody who is a fasiq. And specifically, there was a circumstance which this ayah, it could be that it was revealed about that, where there was a specific Sahaba who brought some news to the Prophet ﷺ, and that news had not been verified. Okay, so then what was said about a group of people was not entirely true, and the news needed to be verified. Okay, if we look at what fasiq means, okay, then we can understand it better. So a fasiq, Shaykh Uthaymeen gave different meanings of this word. Okay, he said someone who is not trustworthy in his speech or in his actions, someone who persists upon minor sins, someone who commits major sins. Okay, and a major sin is, there are different explanations of what a major sin is, but generally we know that a major sin is anything that is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah that brings about a punishment, or that brings about the anger of Allah, or that brings about the wrath of Allah. If there is a punishment linked to it, then it is considered a major sin. So somebody who commits major sins, somebody who persists upon the minor sins, because when you keep doing something that is considered a minor sin, the amount that it is done can be equivalent to committing major sins. And the example that Shaykh Uthaymeen said is a fasiq is someone who shaves his face. Okay, and this is because he does it consistently. Somebody who is constantly shaving his beard off or shaving the hair off of his face, then this is someone who is consistently doing that deed, which turns him into a fasiq. Also, a fasiq can be somebody who is a liar or a sinner, okay, or someone who has crossed the limits, the wrongdoer, okay. A fasiq can also be somebody who has compromised their integrity, okay. So it may not be that they've fallen into sin necessarily, but they have made a mistake and they have done something wrong, which in the case of the Sahaba who relayed a piece of news that was not that hadn't been verified, okay, he wouldn't be described as a fasiq because he is a Sahaba radiallahu anhu. But he fell into a mistake, okay, and even if he fell into something that was fisq, we know that Allah said about the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that he is pleased with them and they are pleased with him. Which means that even if they did fall into fisq because they were not infallible, okay, and they did make some mistakes, but we love them and we respect them and we do not say anything that is seen as a criticism towards them. But even if they did make a mistake, Allah has made clear that He is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him, which means that they made tawbah and their mistakes were overlooked. Okay. But generally, the general meaning here is that we don't take news from someone who is known to be unreliable or untrustworthy, or somebody who is, sinning in public, and you see them sinning. Then you don't just take information from them at face value. You have to then verify it. If you are going to act upon it, you verify it first. You investigate it. If it's going to affect your heart and create doubts in you about specific people, then you must verify it to rid yourself of those doubts. You can see that fasiq can be somebody who sins a lot, or it can be somebody who is sinning, who is making mistakes, who has maybe come away from the obedience of Allah, or it is someone who has done something that is inappropriate, but not a sinner, which is what it was in the case of the companion radiallahu anhu. It can also mean that when it comes to the Sahaba or somebody who has made a mistake, it can mean that he has made the mistake because he wasn't aware of of the knowledge, okay, or he wasn't aware of the ruling that surrounded it. And we know that if somebody makes a mistake, but they were not, they didn't have the correct information about it. So, for example, if we go back to shaving the face, if someone is not clear, or he doesn't know that having a beard and not having a clean shaven face is something that is wajib upon him, then then he is not accountable. He still falls into mistake, but he's not necessarily sinful, because if you don't know, then you are not sinful. And Allah said in the Quran that we will never punish a group of people until the message has come to them. And this is from Allah's justice and from His mercy and from His, from Him being very fair to the whole of the ummah, that He will not punish them unless the message has come to them. And we can see from the Quran that even the groups of people that were punished, they were given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to accept the message and to turn back to Allah and return to the truth. It was only after they allowed those opportunities to go by and they rejected and they wouldn't accept the message, that then they were punished. But they were punished after the message was sent to them. In the same way, somebody is not sinful, or somebody is not accountable for that deed if they don't know the truth about that action. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, Allah has overlooked from my ummah, if they do something out of mistake, forgetfulness, or if they are forced to do it, if they are compelled to do it. If you make a mistake unintentionally, or you forget, okay, so if you forget the salah, then you pray as soon as you remember. Okay, and then the time for your salah is in that period of time where you've remembered, and you must pray straight away. And forgetting, you're not accountable for that forgetting, okay, because Allah has given us this leeway. Or if you are compelled to do a deed, then this is overlooked as well, and you are not accountable for that. So we know that if a person made a mistake, he is not a sinner, okay, if he didn't know. And we accept both opinions here, okay, that the fasiq is the wrongdoer, the sinful one, the liar, the one that's untrustworthy, the one who persists upon minor sins, and the one who commits major sins, okay. And there are those who are fasiq and they are still within the religion of Islam, and there are those who exit the fold of Islam because their fisq is more than what we just said. It is kufr and shirk, and the actions or speech that will exit them from the fold of Islam. So we don't take a piece of news from them, information from them, unless it has been verified. We don't wholeheartedly trust that person until we have verified what they have said. And the opposite applies. Okay, so we know that if we shouldn't take information from a fasiq, okay, and this is one of the benefits of the ayah, is that the opposite meaning of the ayah applies, in that an upright person, if an upright person, a truthful, honest person, a believer, he comes to you with news, then accept it. Okay, and this is why, this is the evidence for the fact that we accept a hadith from the narrators who were known for their truthfulness and their honesty and their trustworthiness and their strong memory. This is what would a narrator in a chain of hadith, a narrator who is within that chain of narration, narrating a hadith, if he is known to be of these characteristics that I just mentioned, then we accept the hadith from him. And this is the evidence for that. And there are other benefits to this part of the ayah. I have not been able to go through all of the benefits or I have not been able to write down all of the benefits, because some of them we need to go through the second part of the ayah in order to benefit from them. But if we go through some of the benefits that we get just from this part of the ayah, okay, the first one, it is that it is wajib to confirm the information that comes to us. And we can see that it's very straightforward in the ayah. Okay, it is wajib to do that. فَتَبَيَّنُوا. And it is, we are told to check, if somebody comes to you with information about somebody else, Okay, you have to check, and then you have to make excuses for that person. But once that information has been verified, so for example, somebody comes to you talking about somebody's religious affairs. Okay, so for example, oh, they don't pray, or she doesn't wear hijab. Well, these are the reason why I'm mentioning these is because these are apparent. We can only judge by what is apparent. We cannot judge the inside of a person or the heart of a person. We can only judge by what is apparent. So, okay, she doesn't wear hijab. Now, before you advise that person, you have to verify that that information is true. And then once you have verified it, then you you can make excuses for them and you can advise them. But we must not advise unless we have verified that that information is true, because then that can lead to harming that person, or it can lead to offending that person if that information was not even true in the first place. Another benefit is that anything that we forward, okay, and this is very common with email and social media and WhatsApp and Telegram and all of these things, if we don't verify what we have forwarded, then we fall into these people who are forwarding and spreading information without checking if it is true. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, he passed by the two graves. He passed by the grave of two people, and he could hear. Allah gave him the ability to hear that they were being punished. Okay, and he told the Sahaba the reasons why they were being punished. One of them was because he would spread information that was not true, and this would create enmity between the people. So spreading information that is not true is, can fall under major sin. So when we forward information, if you're going to forward, forward ayat of the Quran, even make sure check that it is in the Quran. If you're going to forward on narrations from the ulama or the or even a hadith, if you are taking them from a reliable source, then of course you don't need to verify them. Okay, if you know that the source that you are getting them from is reliable, then of course you don't need to verify them. But if somebody is sending it to you and you don't trust them, or you know that they are not trustworthy, or you know that they are not practicing the religion in the way that they should be practicing it, then verify the information. Or when somebody forwards a narration from the Salaf or a hadith, things like this, they must reference what they are sending. This is found in this book, or this is found in this collection of a hadith, and this is the number. It must be referenced in order to, this is a form of verification for allowing people to verify what it is that they are sending. And we have to be very careful with what we forward. Another benefit is that when we, because this is addressed to the believers, when we take on these characteristics that Allah is mentioning here in this surah, then this is a perfection of the iman. Okay, Allah is calling upon the believers to perfect their iman. Now, you are already believers. Now, these are ways that you can perfect your iman and you can perfect your character. Another benefit is that there are certain situations where one person is not enough to verify a piece of information. So, for example, if there has been a case where somebody is claiming that somebody else has committed zina, okay, they have committed fornication or adultery, and one person has been a witness to that, this is not sufficient in the court of law. You would not be able to accept that information from them. In the Quran, Allah mentions that they should have 4. You need to have 4 witnesses, eyewitnesses, before that testimony can be accepted. In the same way, for somebody who has stolen or has been in a case where there has been some theft, or there's been a claim that he has been involved in theft, one person's testimony is not enough. You need to have 2 at least for the person who has been involved in theft. When it comes to something like the moon sighting, okay, for the month to begin, one sighting is sufficient of a truthful, honest, reliable a person who knows as well what he's doing and what he's looking for, then one sighting is sufficient. Some other benefits to the ayah, okay? So we saw that how you react to the news, whether you verify it or whether you don't, depends on what the news is, okay, and who is bringing it. Depends on what the news is and who is bringing it. So if it is general news, then one, جاءكم فاسق, Allah mentioned one person, then that is enough and you must verify it, okay? Or if somebody brings you, and the opposite applies, if somebody brings you truth and they are sadiq, okay, or they are, they are truthful, they are a believer, they are honest, then one is enough in order to not need to verify that news. Why did Allah use the word naba and not khabar? Okay, because khabar also means information, also means news. But Allah mentioned naba here, and the benefit of that is that naba is a type of news that impacts or affects the heart and can create doubts within the heart. Okay, so this is it's this type of news that we have to verify. فَتَبَيَّنُوا, we must make it clear, we must investigate, and we must verify it. And Allah used this word rather than khabar because it is this type of news that we have to verify. The news that impacts the heart, that can create those doubts in the heart. And the fa is there, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, to show that this is what you do next. Okay, so the news comes to you, and then you've got to do this. فَتَبَيَّنُوا. Yeah, it shows the process of how we are supposed to react. What we have to do. Another benefit is that if you are going to verify, okay, and you are going to investigate, it has to be done in a way that is correct. So we don't spy. And we don't, be sneaky and have these characteristics, because this is not the characteristic of a believer. And this even will be covered in this surah, inshallah. But we have to do it correctly, and we have to do it honestly, and we investigate and we verify in a way that is clean and it is honest, without having to compromise our own integrity, by finding out information. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, the one who brings false news and creates enmity between the believers, between the Muslims, will not enter Jannah. So this shows the seriousness of bringing news that you yourself are not sure if it is true. Okay, if you yourself are not sure, then don't spread it. Don't utter it to anybody until you have made sure that it's true. And even if it is true, if it is about somebody else and there is no benefit in spreading that information, then this we will see later in the surah, but this then comes under backbiting. And if it is not true and you're spreading it, then it is what that person in the grave was being punished for, which was the namima, okay, the slandering, spreading information and creating enmity between the people that is not even true. Spreading false news. So it's very serious, and it's something that we should be careful about falling into. Okay, and this is the speaking and the listening. Okay, if somebody else is talking to you and it sounds like gossip and it sounds like it's just hearsay and what she's heard and what she hasn't heard and what she's seen and what she's not sure about, but you're having a fun conversation and it's turning into a gossip session, then we have to be careful because this is the news that is going to impact your heart. Remember, we said, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but what you see and what you hear feeds back into your heart. Yeah, it feeds back into your heart. And, we want to be focused, rather than that, we want to be focused on purifying that heart and removing the heart of all of those things that are there, that are causing damage to it and causing a barrier between us and our relationship with Allah and with the Quran and with that motivation to do good deeds. So we want to rid our heart and our environment of those things that are going to feed negative things back into the heart. And if there are people who are around you uh, who who you would describe like this, okay, or they're your gossip buddy or whatever it is, then you need to advise each other, and you need to remind each other that this is not something that you want to do when you are sitting together. And fasting, when we fast in Ramadan, is the ideal opportunity to do that, because we know that when you are fasting, it is not just that you are staying away from the food and the drink. You are staying away from these bad characteristics that can affect your fast, that can reduce the reward of your fast. There are those people who come away from the fast and all they've done is stay away from food and drink. So they've just been left hungry and thirsty, but they didn't earn anything from that fast. And why is that? Because they fell into these bad characteristics that need to be avoided: lying, backbiting, slandering, gossiping, being disrespectful, arguing. All of these, swearing, all of these things that can affect our fast. The final benefit, and I know it is a shorter session because the tafsir of this part of the ayah was shorter anyway. Actually, I just looked at the time and I have actually finished on time. But the Prophet ﷺ, when he was with his wife Safiya radiallahu anha, and the Sahaba, or a couple of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they passed by, and in order to avoid any suspicion or any doubt about himself, the Prophet ﷺ made it very clear that she was his wife, and he told them, this is my wife, because the shaitan, he plays with these doubts, or he throws these doubts into our hearts and into our minds, and then they grow, and they can either turn into resentment, or they can turn into where you are thinking bigger things about that person than you should be. So he straight away he clarified, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is my wife. In case the shaitan, he plays with their thoughts and with their feelings and with their doubts. So this is something that we can do. If there is a situation where it looks a bit odd or it is not clear, then we can clarify so that people don't start thinking things about us that are going to compromise our position or us in their eyes. And this is what Allah has made easy for us to go through today. And Allah knows best. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.